Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask for your most sincere forgiveness for starting so late. Unfortunately, sometimes you have to sacrifice in order for the common good to be done well. Tonight, yours truly, the exceptional one, live from the nation's capital, where we are not ashamed of the good news of conservatism, for it is the power of liberation. First to the Republican, and then the socialist. Yours truly at the helm, the exceptional one, Kim McClinton. Mary Brockman, my bouncer in the chat roll at the Exceptional Conservative Show. Mrs. Biggs, watching via live stream, Ustream. Baby, I'm glad you're here. Tonight we want to talk about the biggest story in Washington that's not being covered. We'll be back. Oh, absolutely beautiful. Ladies and gentlemen, yours truly, the exceptional one, here to follow up that great pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America by those young children. If only we taught all of our children the Pledge of Allegiance when they were 3 years old. That's a 3-year-old boy who gives the pledge this morning, this afternoon, this evening, however way you're listening to us. Wherever way you're listening to us, either at the exceptionalconservativeshow.com or Ustream or Planet Google, which is another name for YouTube, which did not record or accept last night's show. Last night, yours truly here, talking about not saving Private Ryan, but hoping to get rid of Public Ryan from the speakership position. And apparently I'm finding out today that the Freedom Caucus, at least 70% of them are going to put their support behind Paul Ryan, although he is a 55% conservative. There are women who are pregnant, but not pregnant 55%. You have to be all the way pregnant. And so tonight, I am in a discombobulated state, knowing, first and foremost, that the Seahawks are up 16-0. This could get ugly. Yeah, it sounds like they're getting away with it. Thank you, Mary. I am a vision in blue because Mrs. Biggs dresses me. Stop. What's that Wendy Williams thing? Is what you doing? How you doing? Something like that. But ladies and gentlemen, I know Sackheads Radio on the other station is covering the big story today out of Washington, D.C. The big story being that, hey, Hillary Clinton lied. Oh, that's a scoop. I'm sorry. I'm not going to cover that. I'm not going to cover it. You all can wax and pontificate all that you wish. I'll play some cuts that I liked, but I'm not going to really cover that particular story. And the reason is very simple. She lied. I don't know exactly how you can better say it. She lied. And I know a lot of people want to spend time trying to break it down and analyze it. But let me just tell you, this is where she was. By golly, just 2 years ago. This is where she was. And this is the kind of strength that totalitarians cling to, that socialists cling to.
People have accused Ambassador Rice and the administration of misleading Americans. I can say, trying to be in the middle of this and understanding what was going on, nothing could be further from the truth. Was information developing? Was the situation fluid? Would we reach conclusions later that weren't reached initially? And I appreciate that.
Madam Secretary, do you disagree with me that a simple phone call to those evacuees to determine what happened would have ascertained immediately that there was no protest? I mean, that was a piece of information that could have been easily obtained.
Well, but Senator,
within hours, if not days.
Senator, when you're in these positions, the last thing you want to do is interfere with any other process.
Well, I realize that's not
number two. No, it's the fact. Number two, I would recommend highly you read both what the ARB said about it and the classified ARB, because even today there are questions being raised. Now, we have no doubt they were terrorists, they were militants, they attacked us, they killed our people. But what was going on and why they were doing what they were doing?
No. Again, we were misled that there was supposedly protests and then something sprang out of that, an assault sprang out of that. And that was easily ascertained that was not the fact.
But
and the American people could have known that within days, and they didn't know that.
With all due respect, the fact is we had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make? It is our job to figure out what happened and do everything we can to prevent it from ever happening again, Senator. Now, honestly, I will do my best to answer your questions about this, but the fact is that people were trying in real time to get to the best information. The IC has a process, I understand, going with the other committees to explain how these talking points came out. But to be clear, it is, from my perspective, less important today, looking backwards, as to why these militants decided they did it, than to find them and bring them to justice. And then maybe we'll figure out what was going on in the meantime.
Wow. And I assure you that Hillary Clinton was just as dramatic today as she was back then in 2003. Just as dramatic. What difference does it make that I lied? And I'm looking stone-faced at you because I, on my watch, allowed the ambassador to be killed by, I can't say this term because it only applies to white men with guns who like to hunt. Terrorists, extremists, radicals. I can't say that because the Obama administration might get mad. I don't want to pontificate on this one because there's a bigger story out of Washington, D.C. today, which virtually shows you exactly why socialists are hide under the sheepskin of the Democrat Party with all intents and purposes of constitutionally bringing down the United States of America and making it as weak as possible amongst the peer states that are basically totalitarian around the world. But here's Hillary Clinton in that fiery moment at Benghazi. And I just want to give you some idea. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it tonight because I know my good friends, they'll come on at 11:30 tonight. According to Dave, they'll come on at 11:30 tonight. Sackheads Radio, Sackhead Sean, Sackhead Clint, Free Sacco. They'll come on. But let me go to clip 2 here.
You just gave a long answer, Madam Secretary, to Ms. Sanchez about what you heard that night, what you're doing, but nowhere in there did you mention a video. You didn't mention a video because there was never a video-inspired protest in Benghazi. There was in Cairo, but not in Benghazi. Victoria Nuland, your spokesperson at the State Department, hours after the attack said this: Benghazi has been attacked by militants. In Cairo, police have removed demonstrators. Benghazi, you got weapons and explosions. Cairo, you got spray paint and rocks. 1 hour before the attack in Benghazi, Chris Stevens walks a diplomat to the front gate. The ambassador didn't report a demonstration. He didn't report it because it never happened. An eyewitness in the command center that night on the ground said no protest, no demonstration. 2 intelligence reports that day. No protest, no demonstration. The attack starts at 3:42 Eastern Time. Ends at approximately 11:40 p.m. that night. At 4:06, an ops alert goes out across the State Department. It says this: mission under attack, armed men, shots fired, explosions heard. No mention of a video, no mention of a protest, no mention of a demonstration. But the best evidence is Greg Hicks, the number 2 guy in Libya, the guy who worked side by side with Ambassador Stevens. He was asked if there had been a protest, would the ambassador have reported it? Mr. Hicks' response: absolutely. For there to have been a demonstration on Chris Stevens' front door and him not to have reported it is unbelievable, Mr. Hicks said. He said, secondly, if it had been reported, he would have been out the back door within minutes, and there was a back gate. Everything points to a terrorist attack. We just heard from Mr. Pompeo about the long history of terrorist incidents, terrorist violence in the country, and yet 5 days later, Susan Rice goes on 5 TV shows, and she says this: Benghazi was a spontaneous reaction as a consequence of a video. A statement we all know is false. But don't take my word for it. Here's what others have said. Rice was off the reservation on 5 networks, White House worried about the politics. Republicans didn't make those statements. They were made by the people who work for you in the Near Eastern Affairs Bureau, the actual experts on Libya in the State Department. So, if there's no evidence for a video-inspired protest, then where'd the false narrative start? Started with you, Madam Secretary. At 10:08, on the night of the attack, you released this statement. Some have sought to justify the vicious behavior as a response to inflammatory material posted on the internet. At 10:08, with no evidence, at 10:08, before the attack is over, at 10:08, when Tyrone Woods and Glenn Doherty are still on the roof of the annex fighting for their lives, the official statement of the State Department blames a video. Why?
During the day on September 11th, as you did mention, Congressman, there was a very large protest against our embassy in Cairo. Protesters breached the walls. They tore down the American flag. And it was of grave concern to us because the inflammatory video had been shown on Egyptian television, which has a broader reach than just inside Egypt. And if you look at what I said, I referred to the video that night in a very specific way. I said some have sought to justify the attack because of the video. I used those words deliberately, not to ascribe a motive to every attacker, but as a warning to those across the region that there was no justification for further attack.
Okay, first and foremost, let me just stop here because I don't want to. I think we have a bigger news story than this. Representative Jim Jordan grilling Hillary Clinton, former Secretary of State, now socialist seeking presidency. And she says, I was attempting to send a warning to the world that the protest was the thing that illustriously aggravated individuals so greatly as to cause a flaring of disdain. The protest evolved into a killing spree, mind you. And if anyone's been following the Exceptional Conservative Show over the past years, I think back then in 2013, we tore apart her story. And I know the rest of the media don't want to cover a conservative breaking up their story that early in the race. But the problem with her story is that the State Department, the Defense Department, and the White House worked that Friday and Saturday before to help the Israelis out of their embassy in Egypt, Cairo, Egypt. All right? So already the warnings had been sent out. The warnings had already been raised. People had already known that there were those who had a sense about them that they were going to hide within protests and create obfuscation, the opportunity to promote a terrorist attack. We also have learned recently that as many as 10 days before 9/11, the first part of September, the Obama administration already knew that the Bokhar terrorists were attempting to make an assault on Benghazi. So you listen to this woman, and it must be great TV, a great opportunity to interrupt network TV with all of the girl gossip shows that are on now. Stuff falling out of my ears. I don't know why you don't go to some intellectually motivating stuff, but apparently everyone was tuning in to hear Hillary Clinton, at least those on the socialist side, show her strength against the Republicans. Oh, look at the Republicans against her. And the Republicans tuning in because we really want to crush her. The simple fact of the matter is the truth is what we should be pursuing. And quite frankly, the only great thing that could have happened today, if Congressman Trey Gowdy had remanded Capitol Hill security to take Hillary and put the handcuffs on her, take her to the basement where there is a holding cell, and keep her in contempt of the U.S. Congress for lying. That's it. That's it. But this is what we get, and we're just going to have to be satisfied with it right now.
In fact, during the course of that week, we had many attacks that were all about the video. We had people breaching the walls of our embassies in Tunis and Khartoum. We had people, thankfully not Americans, dying at protests, but that's what was going on, Congressman.
Secretary Clinton, I appreciate most of those attacks were after the attack on the facility in Benghazi. You mentioned...
Stop right there. What is it when you tell people that something happened, but it really didn't happen? You're using it to basically flower your own remembrances. What do we call that? We call that lying, people. Lying. She lied right there. Have you ever been around a habitual liar? And yes, I do taxes for people. I financially counsel people. I know a habitual liar. You can see it in their record. And I understand. Republicans don't really want to do anything with her. They just want to get Paul Ryan into place so they can take away the constitutional rights of the representatives who are in the House to vacate the motion, a motion to vacate the speaker. They just want to get this year over with so they can go back home and run for office and say they're going to repeal Obamacare. But while this circus was going on, while this lie of lie was going on, and the only thing that could have and should have purposely been done today is for Congressman Trey Gowdy to call the U.S. Capitol Police in and hold her under arrest for contempt of Congress. That's it. That's the only big thing. It should have happened right after her initial speaking. But it didn't happen. So people were sitting there for hour on end watching Hillary take it on the chin. Take one for the team. Take one for Obama. When Obama was doing this.
As President and Commander-in-Chief, my first and most important responsibility is keeping the American people safe. And that means that we make sure that our military is properly funded and that our men and women in uniform get the support, the equipment, the support for their families that they need and deserve when they protect our freedom and our safety. The bill that has been presented to me authorizing our defense, excuse me, the bill that's before me authorizing our defense spending for this year does a number of good things. It makes sure that our military is funded. It has some important provisions around reform of our military retirement system, which is necessary to make sure that it's stable and effective. It's got some cybersecurity provisions that are necessary. That's an increasing threat. Unfortunately, it falls woefully short in three areas. Number one, it keeps in place the sequester that is inadequate for us to properly fund our military in a stable, sustained way and allows all of our armed forces to plan properly. I have repeatedly called on Congress to eliminate the sequester and make sure that we're providing certainty to our military so they can do out-year planning, ensure military readiness, ensure our troops are getting what they need. This bill instead resorts to gimmicks that does not allow the Pentagon to do what it needs to do. Number two, unfortunately prevents a wide range of reforms that are necessary for us to get our military modernized and able to deal with the many threats that are presenting themselves in the 21st century. We have repeatedly put forward a series of reforms, eliminating programs that the Pentagon does not want. Congress keeps on stuffing them back in. And we end up wasting money. We end up diverting resources from things that we do need to have.
Yeah, we end up diverting resources from $500 million programs that produce 6 soldiers. Yeah, that was a great idea, Obama.
Equipment and training and readiness that are necessary for us to meet all potential threats. And the third thing is that this legislation specifically impedes our ability to close Guantanamo in a way that I have repeatedly argued is counterproductive to our efforts to defeat terrorism around the world. Guantanamo is one of the premier mechanisms for jihadists to recruit.
I thought it was a video. Who needs to shut down Gitmo when you have videos, huh? Let me put it. I'm going to play the rest of it because you know how I operate on my show. I want you to get the whole shebang. But President Obama has just told you, he gave a really BS answer. That's the first one. I don't know if he really counted all the reasons why. He seems a little dazed on the counts. Yeah. Something about that Coke thing early in life. But apparently, if you don't spend as much on food stamps, welfare, and other social programs for amnesty-oriented individuals, then we can't spend that kind of money on our soldiers. And in addition to that, he's telling you right now, that the reforms that he wants to put in place were not included. They didn't like my ideas. Yeah. I'm taking my football, I'm going home. Let me tell you the travesty in all of that, and then we're going to go to a break. On the Exceptional Conservative Show, this is a short and abbreviated version of our program. We will be doing at 10 o'clock. New Day Black and Red. I hope that you enjoy it as we look at the idea of what a real leader is. But the President of the United States has made a devout understanding to your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife, your mother, your sister, your aunt, your uncle, your nephew. What he said here is, it is far more important for me to get my liberal agenda, for me to get my progressive agenda. It is more important for me to get my way as a totalitarian and dictator. As a socialist in chief, it's more important for me to get what I want and what I demand. Yogi Berra. Than it is for your son or your daughter to get their pay. God bless America.
It's time for us to close it. It is outdated. It's expensive. It's been.
Lastly, I want to tell you this, and I'll let you go on this. We'll come back on it. Having the terrorist in a prison cell next to Junior is far more important than keeping them at Gitmo. And why do you want to bring the terrorists home, Mr. President? Let's be honest. Because you would like to give Guantanamo Bay to Fidel Castro as a reparation for all of the racist things we did to Cuba since the Kennedy administration.
There for years, and we can do better in terms of keeping our children safe while making sure that we are consistent with our values. So, I'm going to be vetoing this authorization bill. I'm going to be sending it to Congress, and my message to them is very simple. Let's do this right. We're in the midst of budget discussions. Let's have a budget that properly funds our national security as well as economic security. Let's make sure that we're able in a constructive way to reform our military spending to make it sustainable over the long term. And let's make sure that in a responsible way we can draw down the populations in Guantanamo, make sure that the American people are safe, and make sure that we're not providing the kinds of recruitment tools to terrorists that are so dangerous.
Ladies and gentlemen,
There you go.
there you go. Thank you, Mr. President, for leaving our soldiers out there in the wilderness by themselves. What a socialist in chief you are.
Hi, my name is Christopher Arnold. I'm the executive chef of the Wings Restaurant, and today I'm walking through some of the meals that we prepare here. We're making a pizza. We use fresh Italian sausage, and they cook here and slice it up. Our pizza dough is in-house made. Our pizza sauce is in-house made. So everything is fresh and good. This is our Thai curry chicken. The sauce is made with coconut milk and the Thai red curry. It is juicy chicken thighs as well as some mixed vegetables, served with jasmine rice and pita bread. So now we're going to prepare our famous blackened tilapia and grits, our fish and grits on the menu. And our meal will be complete. Let me tell you about our infused heat burgers. So we keep the spice up just a little bit with our infused sauce. We start off with 80-20 USDA ground chuck ham patty burgers, like half a pound of burgers, and we're going to grill it to perfection. After I flipped the burger, we had the sauce, and they took all that to the and then I add a little bit of pepper jack cheese to this burger, spice it up a bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, you should be ordering up right now. Infuse is the best burger in town, and actually the best food in town. You'll find it at Infuse Restaurant and Lounge. Yes! 6339 Allentown Road, Temple Hills, Maryland 20748. Cater your next holiday meal. 301-449-9000. You can easily go to infuseinfuse.com. We'll be back with New Day Black and Red. Dean, I'm playing New Day Black and Red. We're getting ready for it. Ladies and gentlemen, we begin the second half of the Exceptional Conservative Show.com show tonight, as Exceptional Conservative Show that is, but we will be doing something of a twist. We will be taping, for your amusement only, a conversation between the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, who says that everything's big and glorious in Texas, and myself, the exceptional one, Ken McClellan, because you will be listening to Saturday's New Day Black and Red right now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will be going to that in just 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Blown away, ladies and gentlemen. Blown away by the beauty
Please leave
of
your
it all.
message for
Oh.
phase 1.
And just like that, the underground professor's not there. Oh, gee. Oh, gee. I tell you, this day just can't get any better. It really can't. And when you think of the fact that the whole world's attention was on Presser is very good to Ken and Pro for breaking new ground in podcasting. That's how you break new ground in podcasting, man. I tell you. If somebody can get to the underground professor while I am stumbling through the first few moments of New Day Black and Red, which is brought to you by the makers of Jesus Christ. Yes. Apparently, I know I'm going to get in trouble with some fundamentalists on that particular issue. It's just a joke, people. Just a joke. Can you do me a favor sometime and send me that music file? I will do my best. I will do my best to get that music to you. I really love the music that we play on this show. I think we're always steps ahead of everybody else. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been in my opinion, a very awful week for leadership. I really believe that with all of my heart. The terms compromise, the terms incompetence, the general term of angst and disdain for the party and persons and agents that put you into your position. I am telling you without a shadow of a doubt, this has been a very poor week for leadership. We see it amongst those who revolt in the U.S. Congress and in the Freedom Caucus pursuit of having a conservative at the helm. They had to relent to accepting a born-again socialist Republican, or Rhino, in other words, Paul Ryan, who immediately, in order to project success, oh my goodness, okay, that's Dr. Michael Jones. Okay, I'm about to tell Dr. Michael Jones not where to go, but actually that I will call him. Now I'm going to call Dr. Michael Jones, who is the underground professor. And because he's the best part of this particular program. I'm just a small fiddler on the roof kind of guy, you know, although I created the show. I'm just an ordinary kind of cup of tea, per se. There are others. Here we go. There we go. This is the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones.
Hello.
Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, joins us tonight on New Day, or today afternoon, Saturday afternoon on New Day Black and Red on WNJC 1360 AM, part of the Conservative Commandos radio network out of the wonderful city of Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and we broadcast to New Jersey and Delaware and all around the world on the internet. Actually, this is where the newsmakers come to be heard, I tell you that. It is a great thrill always to be on a program where, as second fiddle, I get to introduce the most prominent and most important pundit on this particular program. Say those P's 5 times fast. None other than the underground professor, the great one, Dr. Michael Jones.
Well, did you run out of everybody else to call?
Your name came right out to Alan West and Paul Ryan and John Boehner. I decided, yeah, I'm going to call you.
Yes, I left you a message today because I thought we ought to figure out how to get a hold of you so I can figure out how to call your show.
Yeah.
Since you've never told me. And since I only know it's on YouTube, I don't know how to call YouTube.
Exactly. I've worked out an expression of control. See, I'm a totalitarian myself, but I'm a private totalitarian. It's okay in private industry to be a totalitarian. It's my kingdom. I'm building it. So I'm going to call people from now on and not worry about people calling into my program, ranting and raving about things I don't care about. So,
Well, I think you might have to start doing these without me, because I took a couple of days off from radio and had the largest audience tune into my show ever. I'm not kidding.
what was that protest listening? What was that?
Yes. I thought my show is even more popular when I'm not on it than it is when I'm on it. So, hey.
Well, I must say that your show was very popular last week, New Day Black and Red, and I wasn't on it. So,
well,
did you hold a meeting, sir, or something? Am I supposed to know something? Was there something on the board I was supposed to have read before I came into the office today or something?
we just told everybody you were chasing your roots. Turns out they're blonde roots, and that you dye your hair, but I didn't want anybody else to know that.
You're not supposed to tell people that. See, now the secret's out.
Well, actually, the real secret is that earlier Ken had hit his head, and he re-hit it and got all of his memories back and found out he was actually rerun.
Bong, bong. Ladies and gentlemen, New Day Black and Red, we are proud to be on the Conservative Commandos radio network, and I don't know if our chieftain, our prime dictator, our lovable and affable dictator is immensely thankful, but we get to parlay our intellectual deeds upon his soil every single Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I wanted to talk with you today, sir, since this is, I started out just saying that I thought that this was a terrible week in America for the term leader or leadership. And I wanted to talk with you tonight. Look at your just terrible in the words of the Negro basketball player Charles Barkley. Terrible. I wanted to ask you constitutionally, and looking at the founding fathers, exactly what leadership looks like. And I was going to give my own scriptural. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Concept of what leadership is. But would you presume, and I would assume that you would presume, to move forward in terms of what were the founding fathers in terms of their concept of what true leadership was about?
Well, I can tell you one thing. They would not agree with Obama's definition of leadership from behind, which is his own definition of leadership. I mean, it's what he has called it, you know.
And climate change.
Yes. The leadership to them was a verb. More than just a quality. It was also a verb. It was doing. It was being the example. Living your life as morally and ethically as you can. And when you fail, because you're human and part of the fallen culture, fallen planet, the sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, that you got back up and you admitted to your mistakes and you tried harder. But mostly leadership was doing the right thing and knowing what the right thing is to do and then doing it. And so they would go out and, like say, I think that one of the prime examples of leadership in the world is George Washington.
Yeah.
And his, when he took office as the commanding general of our army, which wasn't really an army at the time, that was leadership. Men would follow him to hell, and they would go into battle. And mind you, what kind of person they did? This wasn't the British military where they were being paid and whipped and were picked up out of the scums of earth and forced to be in the military. These were volunteers that joined the Continental Army or became militia members. And to sit there as a provincial farmer, most likely, to stand next to your fellow men in arms against the onslaught of the British infantry, the best trained, best equipped, and most fearsome army on the face of this planet. And to stand there and sustain volleys with one another, all because Washington said we need to do it, that we need this hill, that we need to save this village, that we need to do whatever we need to do. That's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
Obama, I doubt seriously, could fill the platoon of loyal people that would stay in a battle like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are people that would go to his banner, but if they were getting shot at, do you think they would stay? And that's the test of leadership in a military sense, is that Washington did not have, he had people stay. Now, he had desertions and stuff for other, there's a lot of things you could say, your argument's weak, Professor, but I believe I could argue all those. The fact is that he could field an army, and he did so for 8 years of war, and he did so because of his strength of character and his ethics, and the fact that he really didn't ask more of his men than he was willing to give himself. And that is a definition of leadership. Now, the Republican Party is trying to find a new leader.
Yeah.
And
before we comment on the Republican Party, your statement there is so profound, and it shatters the glass ceiling on what the modern individual would interpret as leadership based on what they've seen over the past 8 years. Could you repeat just once more that definition of leadership?
Repeat? I don't even know what the hell I just said.
Oh, good. Great job, man. Great job. It was profound. Go back on the tape, people.
You have to roll tape.
Roll tape. Cut.
Leadership is strength of character and ethics.
Exactly.
And the ability to do the same things you ask others to do for you.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to.
I was in the Air Force, and I've been in combat, and I can tell you, Ken, that if my bosses were afraid to go and do the things that they were telling me to go do, they wouldn't have done it. Exactly. So this is where I want to go with that line of questioning, and then I want you to get into the Republican portion of it in terms of leadership. But today, while under the cover of the Hillary Clinton hearing on Benghazi, our socialist in chief decided to veto the Defense Authorization Act, which basically leaves Miss Mary Jane and her husband in the loop or dark in terms of funding and for their pay and everything else. So I want to ask you, George Washington took out his bifocals to try to read to soldiers that were in unrest and wanted to receive their pay, and he quipped that the wearing of age upon him has been so great that he's losing his vision, and the men all stood and basically refused to continue in their acts of hostility against the government and waiting for their pay. There was a great awe and respect for the leader. And I don't think George Washington would have ever vetoed the opportunity to pay his soldiers. Well, he was at a secret meeting, a cabal that was there to organize mutiny and to overthrow the new government, which we very well may be having in the very near future. Yes, he did say that he had grown gray and his eyes weak in the service to his fellow soldiers. And there wasn't a dry eye in that room. Many diaries that were written by these soldiers, these officers, talked about how they cried when he did that it just about near broke them. And to see what a great man and all the sacrifices he had done. And the funny thing is had they known, that was just the beginning of his sacrifices. You know, because he had 8 more years of presidency and coming up.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he was a leader, and I don't think this precedent could garner that. Now he'll have his functionaries and flunkies, people who think they can profit off of him or gain more power off of him by association, but not out of love, not out of duty, only out of, people like Ayers and Clown and Piven, those kind of people will associate because they think he's a means to an end, but not because they love him as a brother and because he is good for the country and a moral and ethical man. It's a whole different field. Now, of course, I agree totally with him not signing the defense bill, because who needs defense if you can't kill babies in the womb? Right? And that was his proposition, that this defense bill would defund Planned Parenthood. And his position was, we don't need no stinking defense if we can't kill babies. Which is funny, because the left often calls people in the military
baby killers.
Yeah. And so I see the irony there. And, you got to love a president who can't pass the irony up.
We're talking today with one of the great pundits in America and great commentators, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, and I am humbled every Saturday at 5 p.m. when he touches down and joins me in conversation. I'm Ken McClinton, the exceptional one from Washington, D.C., host of the Exceptional Conservative Show. We're live, or at least pre-recorded live, Saturday, 5 p.m. on WNJC, 1360 AM, and it is on Commandos, the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, and we love our affable, lovable dictator,
Sure.
Rick. We do love Rick.
In fact, I heard you call him Rick Barack. How did you say? What was the last name? I can't remember now. Jervis? Yeah. Rick Jervis. Hey, we rule drive time on Saturdays in Philly.
Yes, we do. No matter where people drive.
Now, did you tell everybody the gift I bought you?
What gift did you buy me?
Well, an agent should have contacted you today. They said they left a message.
Really?
Yes, you didn't get the voicemail?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
That's because it went straight to voicemail, but that didn't hurt anybody's feelings. Just saying. Yes, I got you Mayonnaise of the Month Club.
Really? Mayonnaise of the... Oh,
I know a brother in the hood's got to love him some mayo.
You know what I'm saying? Because mayo is good for not only your sandwiches, but you can use it in your hair too. You know what I'm saying?
That's mayo curl.
The next best thing to weave.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about leadership today. And there seems to be a dramatic absence of leadership in America. I want to talk with you, Professor, on a constitutional viewpoint. Earlier this week, a very strong-willed Republican, Paul Ryan, decided that in order to ascertain the unity of all Republicans, you have to get rid of one of the founding fathers' greatest provisions, that in the House of Representatives, that is to give the people the opportunity to vacate the speaker to find a leader that they preferred. And apparently...
Well, let's be clear. He didn't say to get rid of that ability. He just wanted it to be harder. So right now it's only 50 plus 1, 50% plus 1.
Mm-hmm.
You can get rid of a speaker. It's called vacating the chair, is the proper term. And right now 50% plus one of the House votes, you can get rid of them. So half of the 365 members and one extra, and the speaker's gone. It's a vote of confidence, if you will. He wants it to be higher, like say, I forget the number he was saying, but 75%, I think, or something. You know, 3/4.
Yeah.
And of course, I find that to be unbelievable. And as I wrote Congress and the Freedom Caucus, I asked them. I said, "How did it work out for the Senate when they waived the ability to consent on treaties, and we got the Iran deal?"
Yeah.
Are you seriously going to do this again? But hey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and you and I are both flabbergasted, and I want you to, because I'm related to this guy. I found that out recently.
Which Paul Ryan?
No.
I can see the family resemblance.
Yeah. We work out in the same gym. No, actually Thomas Jefferson. So I want you to.
Now, you're not going to tell me that you're part of the Sally Jennings thing, because as far as the experts can tell, it's most likely his brother, Thomas Jefferson's brother, not actually Thomas Jefferson.
I don't care who sleeps. I want to get credit.
Yeah. Don't ask, don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell. Creep, creep. Chicka bomb, wow. But I want you to explain Thomas Jefferson. Why would Thomas Jefferson, amongst a group of people who are so civil, former Britons, want a 50+1 for the House that holds the purse?
Well, okay, think of this, Ken. How many years have the seniority level of our speakers had in past memory? Newt Gingrich and those guys. How many years of seniority do they have? Boehner, over 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, the speaker has been like the guy with a lot of seniority, or the highest seniority, next in line sort of thing. In 1789, this Constitution was approved and ratified in September of 1789. And so Washington was elected in 1790.
Yeah.
And for the first 100 years of the country, the average seniority of the Speaker of the House, take a guess.
4 years.
2.
2. Wow.
2. And so they expected turnover, and they expected that someone would serve a term and kind of learn, and then would take a leadership role for a term or two, and then go away. Now, that was the expectation. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to make sure that if someone tried to become a tyrant and stay term after term, that they had a way to get rid of them. Or if someone took the office and was abusive of it and did things like, I don't know, what Pelosi did, creating Obamacare, or the fact that Boehner has sat there and squashed everything that wasn't on his agenda through the rules that the House has established over the last 200-something years. They have a mechanism to get rid of them. Now, something I need to look up. I keep thinking I'll do it. I know the answer, but I can't remember it. And that is how many times we have done this, where we have voted to vacate the chair. It isn't many.
I think it's twice.
It might be.
Yeah.
But that's a number that sticks in my head, but I don't know if that's right or not. So I don't want to claim it.
Okay. You don't want to say that
you said it first.
Yeah, you don't want me to say that. You just basically don't want me to be right here. That's basically.
No. I don't mind you being right, but if you're wrong, I don't want to be associated. So if you're right, if you're wrong, it's all on you, mate.
That's a team player.
I don't think the professor stays. He's always right. So I've got to make sure I don't let that dictate. But chair. And Boehner and company, they did a test run. He had the whips go out and do what the whips do, and that is to determine where everybody stands in the party over the vote for speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And the determination was this, that the Democrats like Boehner because he has given more of the agenda to Obama than any other speaker, including Pelosi. But if they had a chance to embarrass the Republican Party by having a Republican speaker vacated, they would do it. And so he had no Democrat support. And out of the Republican Party, about half of them were saying they wouldn't support him. And so that told Boehner that he would lose this fight. And so he changed, he changed what he was going to do and decided he was going to resign. But not just the speakership. He wasn't going to go back and be a representative. He was just going to quit all the way. Okay, now this was to quit. He made a deal with the Republicans. I don't know if you heard that on my show, but I speculated what that deal may be, and that it had something to do with the budgets coming up, or it had something to do with who was going to replace them. And we heard Daniel Webster's name put forth by the Freedom Caucus, and I said that I like this guy. I could support him. It's not perfect, but compared to the last 5 or so speakers of the House, this guy's brilliant. A brilliant choice. But I thought there was a fix. And when it looked too apparent like we were going to go that way, Boehner started making that saber rattling that he wasn't going to resign after all. And of course, that caused a huge flare-up, and he realized whether he wanted to or not, he was gone. So, but I think the fix is in, and I think that what they were doing was they were trying to find a way to make Ryan palatable to us. And this is why you're seeing people say that we're being betrayed by the Republican Party yet again, because we're going to get Ryan. Now, from what I understand, my latest contacts have said that here's the deal, that the Freedom Caucus can go with Paul Ryan, but not with his demands. And he had a few demands. One was to raise the bar on the ability to get rid of speakers. And the thing was, I think he realized that he had no intention of doing what the Freedom Caucus was expecting, and he didn't want them to be able to kick him right back out. So, he wants that. And the very fact he's asking for that tells me that, there's a reason he's asking for it. And that reason should be that we shouldn't do it then. But he also wanted more time to be with his family. He's got young kids and stuff. I get that. He doesn't want to be a speaker that flies all over the country raising money for the party or campaigning for Republicans for office by using his strength in his office. And I'm sorry, but if you're the speaker, that is a huge portion of your job. And so that should not be agreed to either. So the latest I've heard is that they can tolerate Ryan as speaker, but not with the deals, not with his demands. And so who knows? Webster is refusing to pull his name out, even though he is no longer the endorsed candidate of
the Freedom Caucus.
Freedom Caucus.
Exactly. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say to you, from my research, as I sit at the foot of the master, and that's that's really racial there. There are actually 2 historical times that it has occurred. One was privileged and the other was not privileged.
Wait, what kind of times?
2.
Yeah, but you said you caveated. What kind of times?
One was a privileged motion.
No, you said 2 hysterical times.
It does say hysterical? That's absolutely ridiculous!
That's terrible.
That's just horrible. There are 2 historical moments in which it has been done. One was a privilege motion, which meets the definition, the true definition of the vacate motion. When that was done back in 1910, March of 1910. And the other time was a non-privileged motion because Representative Mark Meadows filed the motion to vacate the speakership of John Boehner, and that was referred to the Rules Committee instead of triggering an immediate floor vote. So only twice in the history of the U.S. Congress has that been done. And I want to give kudos out to Representative Mark Meadows. Great job, man. Great job. What a way of being a leader. Good leadership.
You know, if this pans out, then people will owe a debt of gratitude to a man they probably never heard of.
Exactly. And actually,
Because this is,
a man from North Carolina who ran, who I was opposed to because he wasn't conservative enough. Gosh darn it, you earned your conservative medals, man.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to WNJC 1360 AM out of the wonderful city of brotherly love. That's Philadelphia in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as we broadcast over Delaware, New Jersey on the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, home of Rick Trader and all of the great, I forget my name now, all of the great commentators that come on during
Fred
the
Schwartz.
Yeah, Fred Schwartz. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been listening to the constitutional comments of Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor. We're talking today about what is leadership. And I want to give a biblical concept of what leadership, true leadership is. And I want to take a look at Philippians chapter 2 and also Philippians chapter 3. I may not get to everything. And so definitely, if you have an opportunity, and you all know that I love reading from the Blue Letter Bible online, BLUELETTERBIBLE.org. It's a place you should go for that. If there be...
That's right.
Yeah.
Tell everybody that's driving to pick up their phone.
Pick up your phone. That's right. Firstly, start waving in the air like you just don't care.
Jesus will do the driving.
Go ahead. Get on the passenger side. Jesus will take it from here. How many accidents in drive time have we just created? And I do say we. Philippians chapter 2. If there be therefore any consolation in Christ, if any comfort of love, if any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels and mercies, fulfill ye my joy, that ye be like-minded, having the same love, being of one accord and of one mind. Let nothing be done through strife or vain glory. We look at the last 2 weeks, and we compare Philippians chapter 2, the third verse, the A section of that, to what's been done on Capitol Hill with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, what the President of the United States did under the cover of their hearing this afternoon by vetoing the Defense Authorization Bill. We look at what happened on Capitol Hill with the pursuit of a conservative speaker. And we see that there is such great strife, virtually such moments where it seems harder to do that which is right than to do that which is right in your own eyes. The vainglory of these positions has gotten to each and every one of them. They have allowed their positions to get in the way of their ability to position legislation to get passed, position the people of this country ahead of the president of this nation. And so we're left in terms of the question out of Philippians chapter 2, exactly what is a true leader? What exactly would you compare a person to in terms of developing fundamental characteristics of great leadership? While many of us would think, why not Einstein? Why not Dwight D. Eisenhower? Why not Thomas Sowell? Why not George Washington? But there is a even better character to compare to. Not that any of those are so flawed that they don't possess great characteristics, but there's something different about a great leader, and you'll see it in Philippians chapter 2 and 3. The professor spoke earlier that this leader wouldn't do anything different that's required of you than himself. He would be willing to go the extra mile, that you would be a follower. Let me continue out of the 3rd verse. Let nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. This is why I say on Capitol Hill that you cannot tell me that you love the Constitution or the people that it protects if you allow a woman to sit before you and lie and catch her in the lie and then allow her to go back on the campaign trail to continue the deception. You cannot tell me that you are a great leader when you wish to, for ideological purposes, give over your territory and to impoverish your people just so that you can make an ideological point. Nor should you choose someone who is affixed on taking on ideological pursuits that will lead you eventually into a sloven 14th Amendment despair. You have to look on to the very thing which is the Constitution and honor it, because it belongs to every man. 5th verse. Let this mind be in you which was also in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation. He humbled himself. He lowered himself, that you might receive something that you could have never received of your own reputation. Go back to verse 7. It says, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. There we are, my friends. What exactly is a leader? A leader is someone who is willing to humble himself from his position of grand authority and grandiose ideal and become a servant. Verse 8, and being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Literally, in his obedience, he gave up everything that you might receive it all. Verse 9, wherefore God also hath highly exalted him, and given him a name which is above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth, and that every tongue should confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So let's really get into the details of what makes you a great leader by looking at Jesus. The 12th verse of the 2nd chapter of Philippians. Wherefore, my beloved, as ye have also obeyed. The first thing a servant must be able to do is obey. You cannot tell me that you have a leader who's willing to do his own thing outside of your will and then call himself your leader. Again, the 12th verse, wherefore, my beloved, as ye have also obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. Do all things without murmurings and disputings. I say I'm a Republican, but I don't act like one. And I don't vote like one. There's a problem with that picture. 15th verse. that ye may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world, holding forth the word of life, that I might rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. Yea, and if I be offered upon the sacrifice and service of your faith, I joy and rejoice with you all. For the same cause also do ye joy and rejoice with me. But I trust in the Lord Jesus to send Timotheus shortly unto you, that I also may be of good comfort when I know your state. For I have no man like-minded who will naturally care for your state. For all seek their own, not the things which are Jesus Christ. And so I want to stop right there. We could go on in the 3rd chapter as well of Philippians, and it's something I may take a look at this weekend when we do an American exploration of the inspired Word of God. But I want to leave you with the final 2 verses of this Philippians chapter 2 as a encouragement for you if you're seeking leadership today. Leadership that requires you to be in one accord with Christ, to be like-minded with Christ, and that you labor not in vain, but subject yourself as servant to Christ. In the 29th and 30th verse, it reads this way: Receive him through, therefore, in the Lord with all gladness, and hold such in reputation. Because for the work of Christ he was nigh unto death, not regarding his life, to supply your lack of service toward me. When you say you're going to be a servant of the people, you must never forget that you have to serve, and that it is a service of obedience. Professor, where did I go wrong?
I just can't believe you did all that without taking a breath.
Southern Baptist minister, that's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, leadership is tricky, and if anybody could do it, if everybody could do it, it wouldn't be leadership. The trick is that some of us are leaders, and some of us are middlings, and some of us are followers. And, and there's no shame in any of those, but in this country, we have the privilege and burden of selecting our own leaders. And when we do so, we should make sure that the people we're actually electing are true leaders, that they're ethical and moral, and that they will obey the rule of law. And not simply that they're going to give us a phone or make someone else pay for our lifestyles. That's socialism and communism, and basically the only difference between those is socialism is done via the ballot box, and communism is done at the point of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
And we are heading towards socialism through the ballot box. And when socialism manages to denude America of people that are still willing to lead and take the risk of being out there leading, when they come and they take our guns and whatnot, and they take away the rest of our freedoms, then in fact we will become communists de facto.
Exactly.
We will be. We're slouching towards fascism, and I know that may sound like an alarmist thing, or I'm some extremist, but the truth is that we're so close to it already. We should all be afraid that our children and our grandchildren will grow up to be slaves.
Exactly.
And the sad thing is, Ken, how many people lost their lives getting us these freedoms?
Mm-hmm.
Through all the wars of this country. It wasn't just the Revolutionary War. And the Civil War was about this too. And tens and tens of thousands died to reaffirm that freedom. And we're about to squander it because it's inconvenient or it's getting in the way of dancing with the stars.
I want to ask you here, Professor, as we listen to the final commentary on New Day Black and Red, the great 5 o'clock show on WNJC 1360 AM, and the wonderful Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Professor, we have come so far, and we're at that particular moment where even the Republican wants to create a system that gives absolute power. And it was once the pursuit of liberty and freedom that we sent men to Washington, D.C., but it seems to be the pursuit of power and influence by which we do it. Because if the truth of the matter is, many people would vote out their leaders if there wasn't something called seniority, which you referred to earlier, that ability for certain members to have certain privileges, although they're all equally voted into the same offices. Should there be a reform in terms of what seniority is in both the House and the Senate? And what would be the conscience of men if they would just vote on the principles and not for the affluence that comes with voting?
Look, if we took our responsibilities as citizens of this country seriously, we wouldn't need to do any changes. The founders got most of it right. Mm-hmm. And there's been a few corrections. I mean, we've only amended the Constitution 27 times. And there's a reason for it, because most of it's right when it's adhered to. Mm-hmm. And most of the amendments, if you look at it, and yes, I know I will sound crazy, but most of the amendments past the Bill of Rights were designed specifically by Republicans to force Democrats to treat blacks as human beings. And because they wouldn't. And if it wasn't for the Democrat Party, half of the amendments wouldn't be there. And so, think about that. And now they're the ones that are saying that they're championing it. They're the ones that have given it to the to the book. But what we need are ethical people to step up and run for office. And we need ethical voters to put them there. We need people who, let me ask you it this way, Ken. Let's say you were falsely accused of a crime, mm-hmm. and you had a jury of your peers, none of whom wanted to be there. How would you feel knowing that all of them are annoyed at you because you have inconvenienced their TV watching, or it's, bowling night, or, they are tired and they can't afford to miss work and they're getting $6 a day for being a juror and they're losing out on $100 a day at work. That system kind of sucks, but that's our system. Mm-hmm. And we're unwilling to do that or to take as seriously the role of a juror. And we're even less so taking the role of citizens seriously, the role of voters seriously. And you hear all the time, well, my vote doesn't count, or what matters are all crooks, or both parties are the same. Well, both parties are the same because the Fabian socialists split in half. And part of them went in the Democrat Party and part of them went in the Republican Party, and they're the leadership of both parties. Mm-hmm. But the rank and file of the Republican Party is exactly those people you would expect to be in the Republican Party. And we're being stymied in our own party by the socialists and progressives. So there is a difference between them. But these people would rather use that as a cop-out than to do the hard work necessary to fix the problem of having Fabians in both parties, progressives in both parties. This isn't easy, but freedom has never been cheap, and it's never been easy. And it's never been easy to be free, let alone to maintain freedom. And I want to stress that there's a difference.
Okay.
We still have some freedoms. We can choose what we're going to eat and where we're going to go for the most part, not kids in school, because Chairman Chow has decided what they're going to eat. But we have the illusion of freedom because we can make consumer choices. Mm-hmm. And we have the illusion of freedom because we still technically vote for the people who send to Washington. But we don't truly have freedom because we don't follow up on those votes and tell these people how they should vote, or that we're going to punish them if they vote wrong and remove them from office. And you don't even have to think of it as punishment. Just say, well, we screwed up, but we put the wrong guy there, you're fired. Mm-hmm. And look at the next one. November is coming up, and Election Day is coming up.
Yeah.
And the Republican Party has probably its last chance to do the right thing to save this country at the election ballot. And I'm seriously worried about who we're going to elect as our candidate.
Exactly.
And what that vote may mean. Maybe we should look at that next Saturday.
Yeah, I would love to. And I want to ask you, because I can ask you anything.
Anything you may ask.
As we come to a close here, we constantly heard this week, whether it be Hillary Clinton on Capitol Hill, performance. Her performance was wonderful, according to the socialists. She put up such a great fight, according to the feminists. She held her own against the ravenous Republicans. That's the type of strong-willed individual we need. Someone who can take it on the chin and give it back. And then we heard with Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan's a likable person. I like him. He's so nice. He's just nice. He's just a good guy. He's
I
likable.
want to beat him up and take his lunch money from him.
So I want to ask you, are we profoundly confused between what our founding fathers intended us to look at? Judging people by their ability to drink at the bar with them? Is that it?
Right. You notice that you don't hear that about Democrats, that they're likable or lovable, They're effective. They pursue things. That's what you hear about Republicans, but our Democrats. But Republicans, you don't hear that. You hear how they're mean-spirited, or you hear how they're likable. And the second that the media says someone's likable, I realize that's code word for that they are malleable, or they're pushovers for the Democrats to control and the media to control. That means that they are more concerned with the opinion of mainstream media and the Democrat Party and getting invited to A-list parties than they are the Constitution. And I don't care if someone's likable or not. I don't care if they're talented or not. I don't care if they're anything. What I care about is, do they freaking know what the Constitution says, and are they willing to abide by it? Mm-hmm. And if those two things are met, we're going to be just fine. I brought up Daniel Webster earlier. The original, Noah Webster.
Yes.
Remember, he was given money by Congress, and he refused it for his state, saying that he could not lay his finger on the Constitution where Congress has that power. Where the hell are these people? That's the statesman that I want. I want the guy who says, this is great, but there's no constitutional authority. We can't do it. That's what I want.
Yeah, but without the federal government, how can your state survive? How can Texas survive? How can Mississippi and West Virginia survive without the federal government?
Texas could. I'm not sure about the rest of y'all.
It's everything is big and great in Texas.
That's right. Bigger, better, smarter, except the Cowboys, evidently. But we have a new quarterback, so we're going to win the rest of them.
That's right.
Seriously, Ken, this is exactly my point, is that our government has intruded itself into our lives to where now there actually is some legitimacy to the panic of government shutdowns. Mm-hmm. To me, a government shutdown would not hurt me. And I'm a postal employee. Yeah. Okay? So I would sit home, you know what? I don't live my life paycheck to paycheck. I've got a couple away. I can sit it out, and I know that after all the fighting's over with, that my paycheck will be reinstated and that I will get back pay. So it's not that big a harm to me. But there are people out there who literally cannot go day to day without the government's help, without them telling them what to wear or where to go or how to eat or what to eat. And they need the government to feed them and clothe them. And I'm talking, you're not free. If you can't go a weekend or a week without the government helping you, then you are not a free person. You are a slave, a vassal to the state. And there's just simply no other way to look at that. And I don't mean if you can't go paycheck to paycheck, if you're living because you don't have a lot of money. I'm saying if you need government. I know a lot of people that work, for businesses, and their debts, they did not exercise caution as consumers. And they're living paycheck to paycheck. But that's not the government's fault, and they don't need the government's help. I mean those people who literally will fall apart if welfare officers are aren't opened, or if social services aren't provided, or neighborhood parks are closed down. You know, I mean, if Yosemite shuts down for a week, I am truly not going to be bothered by it. You know, and I don't get that, Kim, how people can live their lives where they actually are afraid of a government shutdown.
Exactly.
I say shut it down. You overspend, and you're ruining our country, and you're indebting our children. Shut it down, and then let's go figure out what's still constitutional that Congress does, and they can fund that.
Exactly. If you can't protect and if you cannot defend, you should not be in Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very special edition of New Day Black and Red. My great co-host, well, actually, he's the host, and I'm just the guy who brings water to him in between the breaks.
You carry the water.
Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, the exceptional one, Kim McClinton. So glad that you're here. A man once told me to live bravely and don't die a coward. I promise you I will not, and he won't either. And I assure you we'll be back next Saturday at 5 p.m. for more of the best and urban conservative talk on Conservative Commandos Radio Network. Good night. God bless. Goodbye.
And don't let the dog bugs bite. All right, Kim, we did it.
We did it. We did it. All right. Thank you, sir. I will be calling upon you soon.
All right.
All right. Talk to you later. God bless.
Yeah, you should let me know your number so that I can figure out how to get a hold of you for the next time.
Okay, we'll talk about that one. Okay.
Yeah, off the air.
God bless America. Now America bless God. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for tuning in to the Exceptional Conservative Show, live from the nation's capital. God bless you. Thank you.